It's Friday. It's the Midday Show with me, Russ Kane, and him, I'm delighted to say, live from
Very
somewhere
kind
in
of you.
Europe.
Thank you.
Somewhere in Europe. We don't know where.
Somewhere in Europe.
Mr. Phil, I'm wearing a cravat, Dave.
Well, I thought I might maintain the cravat image, you know.
It needs to be done. I think you're honest because I'm not. I'm in my merino t-shirt.
I thought you were going to say you're in your pajamas, but no, that's
No, I've been out twice today.
It's stranger only 12 o'clock than people going out in their PJs, believe me.
No, I do not go out in my PJs. I think that is the height of... I've never understood it. People, you're in the supermarket, you think, how lazy are you? You can't even be bothered like a tracksuit.
No, I know.
You're coming out in your pajamas and slippers to go shopping. What the hell's the matter with you, you lazy sod?
Very, very strange. I don't understand.
Bizarre, strange. Bizarre. How are you? What's going on? What's happening? Tell me the news.
Tell you the news. Well,
the news about you.
The news are just after midday. I would say that I have, well, as you well know, been regularly drowning in work, or this bizarre world.
I know.
Work.
That's why I'm thrilled you've managed to join the show today. No, I'm serious.
You very kindly sort of do actually give me the programs off as well when Jonathan Baz is on, just so that it means that...
Ever since that fight in the car park behind Weatherspoons, you've never got on.
Which you are funny to say that, because as you well know, we have worked on shows together and you're absent. So, but anyway, but not to mention, actually, it was quite a good hoot. I mean, do you remember when we went to the Brasserie Zadel for?
Of course, I remember.
That was very nice.
Jonathan first night gin and tonic Baz.
Yeah, Jonathan Baz. Yeah. Also, where we graced by one or two others as well. Happy days.
I know. There's no Chantal today. I'm sorry. I know. No Chantal. She sent a gorgeous email. She is, in fact, in Poland, in the middle of the Polish countryside with no connection. I don't know. Whatever she's done. I don't know. I think she's joined the resistance. She's hiding in a forest.
Oh, there's an idea. I think Chantal would be very scary in the resistance, actually.
Who, Chantal?
Yeah.
What, giving reviews?
Wouldn't get on the wrong side of her. She'd be standing there sort of saying, hold that rifle straight.
Chantas, I don't think she'd be like that. Let's see what we've got coming up with a comment. Hello, Russ and Phil. Hello, Robert Van RVB, horologist to the stars. Anyway, like yesterday...
Oh, my goodness me.
Oh... Good afternoon, boys. It's also good to see my fat boys together.
Do you know, I've come to the...
As she stared off into the middle distance, thinking about the existential life of the French. Francois. Yeah. Oh, I don't know this one. Do you know this person?
Well, I do. I've got to say a very special hello to my mother today because she had a bit of an accident this morning.
No.
Yeah. She didn't make it to the bathroom in time. No, I'm joking.
Oh, don't say that.
No, I'm joking. You know, what happened is that she was taking, along with my father, she's taking my nephews to school this morning, and she might have tripped up and might have cut her head open.
Might have or did?
Did. Mother, have you been to A&E yet? I don't know.
She's in A&E? Oh, for God's sake.
I don't know if she is. I'm not sure.
You don't... Well, she can't be in A&E.
Well, the last I heard... She might be watching.
Isn't it interesting? When you get to a certain point in life, and Linda, I'm with you on this, you say, oh, Phil.
Oh, there you go. Just on the way to have sleep now. I'm really pleased you prioritize that because that happened about 7 o'clock this morning. So thank you for waiting.
Linda, for God's sake. It is a thing. It is a thing. When you get to a certain age, of which I am at that age, by the way, in case you think I'm distancing myself, it's like you'd say, oh, Phil, what happened? I tripped over. What an arse. When you get to Linda and my age, go, you heard about Linda? What? She had a fall.
Yeah.
And there's the world of difference between
it's funny you say
tripping over
I was making a real conscious
yourself
effort.
Down. Yeah.
I was making a real conscious effort to not say this morning my mother had a fall, because I know it makes someone sound so much older than they actually are. It's ridiculous
but
how
it's
we
true.
say that. Well, I mean, it just, you can actually sort of pinpoint where someone
Linda,
is.
You had a fall.
No, but you can sort of kind of pinpoint where someone is in life, depending on how you treat an injury. So you know that when someone's younger, you might have said they got an ouchie, right? So that's sort of like the infant way. That's the infant way of saying it.
Okay.
You get to slightly later in life, through adolescence into your early 20s, you went arse over tit. You get to sort of more for about middle age, and you fell over. And then you get to a certain age where people start saying you had a fall. So I think it's kind of like one of those strange barometers of a life that actually determines the age of someone or the age group of somebody.
Well, I've tripped up twice. And once I dropped my car off for an MOT or something, and I was walking back, and oh my God,
you're carrying it?
Was uneven. I went flying, right? And then, of course, I had the disaster with my stupid hand, which has never, ever recovered. I still, look, that's as much of a fist. I can't, it's never recovered, never will recover. And I hate it. And Francois says, where's she gone? Where's she gone? She's gone now. Where's she gone? Oh, here it is. Are you okay,
know, by the way, you should know, right? My mother and Francoise have struck up one heck of a pal ship. They're really, they're messaging all the time. Oh, yeah.
So will your mother be in the remake of Mind Your Language?
She's got to start minding her language first before she can do that, but I don't know.
No, interesting. It's nice that so is your mother... Is your mum going to start a whole new TV career and film career? Could be in it. Could be.
I doubt it, but possibly. Do you know, speaking of remakes, I heard this week, I don't know how true this is, but I'm not very impressed if this is true, that Disney Plus are looking at remaking The Golden Girls.
Oh! Well, they'll all be black. That's guaranteed. No. You're like Sanford and Son. Let's remake Steptoe and Son. I know, we do Sanford and Son with Red Fox. It was a good series, actually. It ran very, very successfully. They shouldn't just leave stuff alone.
Leave it alone. You don't need to remake it. There you go. Philip Harlings is an afternoon Philip. And Francoise reckons that my mother and her could be a gangster duo.
Yeah, they're like gangster. Know what I mean, right? Anybody less gangster than your mother would be hard to find, to be brutally honest, you know. I'm fine, thank you, lovely Francoise. Just a bit sore, yes. And the other thing is, and I'm saying this as someone around your mum's age, right? You feel so embarrassed. It's something we don't talk about. Because up here, I was talking about it on the show the other day with Longy. And up here, you know, I think, I'm about 27 years old. I feel about 27, right? Until I try to move or do something. And then you realize you're not. Your body's complaining because you're not 27, okay? But you think you are. And I'm sure Linda and Francoise and everybody else think, yeah, that's how old we are. But we're not, and we rail against it. But one of the things you never, ever hear, you know, all these nonsense breakfast TV shows and everything, is that you feel such an idiot. You feel so embarrassed you've fallen over. And you feel, I'm going to be brutally honest, you feel incompetent, you feel stupid. It was an accident, but you beat yourself up as if you haven't been beaten up enough. And you feel like a twerp. And it's horrible. And it's for me, it was an absolute, you see, Francois, agree. People never talk about that. And you're you're younger than my kids. So Francois.
Younger than two of them, not all of them, but yeah.
You're younger than my two oldest kids.
Yes.
The one in America and the one round the corner. Ish. Well, it depends where I am.
She's round the corner, you're round the bend.
I am round been a week and a half this week. Tell me about it. I had so many falls in the street and the embarrassment and just awkward, especially when they yes.
Oh,
they're not going to recognize me, but they're going to recognize you.
So actually, that reminds me, you know, there was this time you say that I don't think embarrassment is limited though strictly to those of a more mature year, because I would suggest that there was a few years ago, stop me if I've told this before. I'll still carry on.
No, you've got to do the Colin Vaines you've got to do the Colin Vaines things. Don't stop me if I've told you this before. And he just continues.
Yeah.
I'd
agree with that.
Don't stop me if I've told you this. But
it's one of the few anecdotes I have up my sleeve that's relevant to this conversation. Okay. But basically, we're going to meet a friend who I hadn't seen for a while. He'd been off traveling somewhere. I was meeting in central London. And I was walking down, I believe it was Shaftesbury Avenue. Okay. It was actually Shaftesbury Avenue.
So at least it's a nice quiet street that no one ever.
Exactly. So absolutely heaving. I was on the side where Chinatown is. So I was darting along because I was running a bit late for a change in my life. And I missed my footing on the curb and absolutely went flying and nearly went smack on my face. Managed to stop myself with my hand, but even so. And of course, I landed at the feet of some unsuspecting tourists. So I don't know whether or not they thought this was maybe some sort of bizarre welcome ritual to London or something like that. I don't know, whether or not. So like,
or
we're so happy to have
could have been a street performance.
Or that, or they just actually know the reputation of the British. They thought, oh God, here's another drunkard. But anyway, but I did at the same time, you've never seen anything like it. I had someone who was starting to walk over just to check if I was okay. I shot up. I didn't care what injuries I had or anything like that and just darted off because, like you say, there's this feeling of embarrassment. You don't want people to look at you and start almost expressing sympathy because you feel almost vulnerable. You feel daft.
Well, you do feel daft, and you do feel
so I
very
shot off
vulnerable.
very quickly.
And the other thing you feel, of course, is horribly mortal. I know it sounds stupid, but when you're young, you fall over, you stand up, you brush your trousers down and your jacket or whatever, and off you go. But it's as you get older, these things really have an impact. Yesterday, I was conducting another funeral, and it was absolutely packed, and they were like 7 deep at the back of the chapel. It was really, really rammed. And oh my God, Francine, you fell down a pothole. This is my cousin. I fell down a pothole.
I don't mean to laugh.
Stop laughing. You're not laughing, are you, Phil?
I'm not laughing.
You're not laughing at what have you done? You're not laughing at my cousin Francine Warner.
Sorry, we get around.
Yay! Wah, 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 wah. Oh. Fran, where the hell did you fall down?
With you.
That's hilarious. Crazy name, crazy guy. Sorry for being late.
Sorry, so hang on a second. So, cousin Fran, how did you fall down a pothole?
Drunk again. Sure. Drinks like a fish. Drink. Oh, never seen anyone who doesn't drink at all, by the way. Not at all. Absolutely. Thank you, Fran.
Good heavens.
The airbags saved her from embarrassment and a bashed up face.
She bounced straight back up again.
God, and everyone was applauding in the street.
That's very naughty, Francine.
Where did she do it? Francine is graceful. She's the most proper person. If I swear, Francine's like my sister, right? If I swear, she hates it. I've never heard her swear, and she doesn't drink. God, you're boring, Fran. I've decided. Anyway, Francois Pascal, when I fell down and hit my head really, really, oh yeah, you have such a shock, you cry. Horrible. Horrible. What have we got? Oh no, what have we got here? Geraldine Granger. Who the hell's Geraldine Granger?
Oh, Geraldine Granger, the Vicar of Dibley. So you know that scene, that famous scene where Dawn French jumps in a puddle. So.
She's walking along a country lane, chatting. And Dawn French, and she just disappears.
She just falls into a puddle, which is actually a heck of a lot deeper than it looks like.
Oh my God, that's just fantastic. That is fantastic.
Good gracious me. Paul,
what's going on with Claridge? Are you going to read this?
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you are fit and well. Been a bit of a horrible week here in Barnet, because he goes on to say that our handsome dog Jackson suddenly became extremely unwell. We thought we were going to lose him, but 1 week later, he's curled up on the sofa next to me, snoring away. Big thanks, by the way, to Anna Webb, her life-saving advice, and amazing staff at Wood Street, and the amazing staff, at Wood Street Veterinary Hospital in Barnet. The vet bill so far just north of £5,000, but hey, we'd do anything to make Jackson well again.
I got bad news for Ebony. If it's anything over 3 and 6,
She's funding it herself.
she can fund it herself under Woofer. They should have like a private pet thing called Woofer. Do you know, speaking of my cousins, Fran's brother, my lovely cousin Glenn, who I see once every never, my lovely cousin Glenn had a pal, and my cousin Glenn, his pal said, I'm going to start a business. Absolutely true. I'm going to start a business. Why don't you come in as my partner? So my cousin Glennie thought, that's a good idea. And he went to my auntie, his mum, my auntie Sylvia, said, Mum, I'm going to, she, as ever, she was just the greatest. Right? You rub my dead body, the fingers wagging. You're not doing this. It's the most stupid idea I've ever heard. Blah, 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 blah. Put him right off. What was the name of the company?
Microsoft
Pet
Word?
Plan. Pet Plan.
There you go. Oh.
Pet Plan, which sold out for gazillions.
And that actually was his company.
But that was the company this guy started. Yeah. And he said to my cousin, come in and join me as my partner. I've got this idea. And my cousin thought it was great, but my aunt thought it was
Out of interest, I know that your Aunt Sylvia is no longer with us, but
no, she's not. Much missed. I miss her loads. She's fantastic.
Did Glenn ever forgive her for that?
No, of course not. I wouldn't. I wasn't even involved, and I never forgave her for it. I wasn't even. I've got another cousin, my fantastic cousin Harry, who's, how old is Harry now? I always think Harry's about 44, 45. He's now 90 something and he looks 70. I'm not kidding. My cousin Harry, he looks 70. He's my first cousin. He looks 70. So he had a mate. He said, I'm going to start a nightclub. This is another first cousin. I'm going to start a nightclub in town. Come in as my partner. So my cousin Harry says to his then wife, who I'm very, very fond of, a lovely woman, said, I'm going to start a night. She said, over my dead body, that you are getting
a very
involved.
Common expression in your
It is. You are going to join and co-found a nightclub, because if you co-found a nightclub, you'll be there every night. I know what's going to happen. I'm never going to see you. No, she put her foot down. What was the name of the nightclub?
Stringfellows.
Tramp.
Oh, good Lord.
Johnny, and his mate was Johnny Gold.
I feel as though that's a common thread of the DNA is missed opportunities.
Do you think? In my stand-up, I sometimes do I've had only two huge missed opportunities. Do you want to know them or no?
Of course, we've got another 40 minutes of this nonsense to kill. When I was at school, there's a boy called Mark Pritchard. Well, I only found out that Mark Pritchard died last year, which makes me feel even more mortal. Oh, dear.
And Mark, one day, and I was at boarding school, right? And Mark was a day boy, and he came up to me and said, Kane. Yeah, because he had a call. So I said, what? What do you want, Pritchard? You've got a drum kit. I went, I have got a drum kit, yes, because I've been drumming since I was like 14. So, and he said, all right, there's a singer in the local pub. The drummer can't make it this Saturday. Do you want to join? I went, no. He said, why not? I said, because it's visiting weekend and I'm going to go home because I hate school food and I've got school food for breakfast, lunch and dinner for months at a time, right? And I want to go home and have my mum's roast beef, Yorkshire pudding and roast potatoes. And I'm really looking forward to it. I want to go home for just a day and a half. So I'm not going to go and support some local singer in some crappy little pub in Bromley. What was the name of the singer? David Bowie.
Oh, did he have much success?
No, never heard of him again.
Oh.
So you're looking at the man who refused to drum. But was very good roast beef, Yorkshire pudding and roast potatoes. Let's be honest about it.
Look, on the plus side, I suppose.
Yeah.
At least.
Well, I bet you
dodged a life of certain narcotics. So
it would have been bloody marvelous. I'm kidding. I'd have loved to have been the drummer for Bowie. But nowhere near good enough. He was incredibly particular. Great memory of Tramp and Johnny Gold. Johnny Gold was a very charming now passed, of course, very charming man. And in my last novel, The Gatekeeper, just as a joke, as an in-joke, I called the hero Nick Gold. And Nick Gold, by pure chance, is the son of Johnny Gold. So I just did it as a gag. That's why the hero is called Nick Gold. It's Johnny Gold's son. No other reason why. It's just little jokes. Just little jokes there.
I have read The Gatekeeper. It's quite good.
Thank you. You're very kind.
Although it does have to be said,
yeah,
that there is this undercurrent of aggression all the way through, aggression and sarcasm all the way through it.
Do you think?
And so when you read that, I find myself sort of almost, how can I put it? Who's the protagonist? What's her name?
That's a great question. My mind's gone blank. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember. Cannot remember. I got so much in my head at the moment. I got something like seven.
Well, anyway,
funerals
whoever the sarcastic cow is who runs all the way through it.
Yes.
Right? Whatever her name is. Believe me.
Leslie Ann.
Is that it?
It's
right.
Leslie Ann her name is Leslie Ann Trove.
Right, okay.
Leslie Ann Trove.
Fine. Because you just get to a point at some point in the book where you just want to slap her, and I would never encourage violence towards anyone. But
violence towards women?
No, towards anyone. But it's more that she's just so sarky. You just think, is there anything you can answer in a straight fashion?
No, she's deliberately horrible. She is deliberately unpleasant. But you have to root for her. Speaking of you wouldn't slap, I'm going to mention 3 names. I'm pouring petrol on the fire. Stand by and watch the face of Phil Dave. Eric Clapton, Miriam Margolyes, Gary Lineker. So you really wouldn't punch anybody right in the face.
Anyway. Well, I mean, it has to be said that Miriam Margolyes, well, she's always been a little bit politically crackers, so I can't take it too seriously. Gary Lineker is an overpaid muppet. Eric Clapton's probably the one I'm most disappointed with.
It's extraordinary. I gave up on the ghastly Roger Waters, who I think is just despicable. And I thought, well, apart from Corbyn, no one's going to be as bad as Roger Waters, who is just foaming at the mouth. Hater. And Clapton, who's got some bloody history with this from years back, just went on a rampage this week, a verbal rampage. And I will never, ever go to see one of his shows. And I'm actually throwing anything that I've got of his, I'm just throwing away. I'm literally putting it in a skip, throwing it away. Never want to hear it again. Anything of his. What's the matter with the guy?
Well, I find it absolutely baffling that there are these individuals who are in the limelight who abuse their position as if they're some sort of expert on what goes on in a part of the world. More often than not, these cretins have never stepped foot in that region, so they don't actually even know what they're talking about. And even if they had, a lot of their decisions are either born out of pure hatred for one reason or another. I know Miriam Margolyes, I realize, is Jewish, so you can't necessarily.
I call her.
She's a self-hater.
She's a self-hating Jew. Let's be honest. Let's call it what it is. She's a self-hating Jew. And if it was World War II, she'd be a capo in the camps. That's what she'd be. She'd be a capo. She
really has no religious tendencies behind her. Born Jewish. That's it. And
right, I can get that's fine. I've zero problem with that. I'm not religious. I'm not a religious person at all.
No, I know. I don't mean that. But what I'm trying to get at is that it's amazing how that sort of circumstance, she would say, it's fine, I'm Jewish, I'm allowed to say this kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
No, but she's not.
She would justify it. She would justify it based on the Judaism.
You can't justify it. This is the point. You're quite right, Phil.
But what I find absolutely hilarious with anyone like Miriam Margolyes, who is openly part of the LGBT community, is step foot in Gaza and see how long you last. And it won't be anything to do with the IDF that you wouldn't last very long, let me tell you. You know,
this is what I don't, you know, I'm going back to my cousins. We've got cousins who live in America. They're gay, they're married, two of the loveliest people you will ever meet. And they, one's American, one's British, okay? When they come over, I have little conversations if I can meet them for a coffee, because their schedule is always insane. But if I can, I talk to the American half of the duo, and they have lost so many gay friends because they say to them, and these are Americans, how stupid are you? Do you not understand how in certain parts of the Middle East, being homosexual is basically illegal? They will kill you. They'll throw you off the top of a building. They'll burn you alive. They'll drag you naked through the streets because you're gay. And you're supporting these people. What the hell is the matter with you? And when they try and argue it quietly, because they're calm people, and they've had to get rid of so many friends who just don't see the complete irony of this.
I know, it is
the
very,
utter
very
irony
strange.
of it. It's bizarre.
Well, it's sort of like brainwashing en masse is the only way to describe it. Because, you know, I have a similar kind of thing, obviously through the line of work I do. I know a lot of people who are part of the LGBT community, and I have seen them post things on social media that I find deeply offensive, and not to mention incredibly stupid and born out of ignorance. And the way that I confront them is with facts and very reasonable questions, and it's never failed. Every single one I've confronted has blocked me or unfriended me. Literally not one.
There's no argument. There's no argument.
They'll possibly put one or two lines back to say, you're wrong, what about this, that, and the other, Israel are revolting.
Yeah.
Not, but whatever. And with that, you get blocked and unfriended. I just think it's absolutely staggering how these idiots are burying their heads in this. They engage in debates because they can't bear to hear the truth, because then it will. There's two reasons for this. Number one, they're so blinded by hatred for Israel, they can't possibly be wrong. And by extension, probably their hatred for Jewish people as well. But the other reason is that if they were proven to be wrong, which, let's be honest, nearly 100% of the time they can be proven wrong, they would just be made to look even more stupid than they are. So their only answer is block and just go and carry on burying themselves in amongst their cohorts who agree with them.
Yeah. Well, they're screaming into their own echo chamber, these idiots. But my favorite is Queers for Palestine. And I always want to just say, please go.
Well, that'd be a clever trick. There's no
please go there. Queers for Palestine. Turkeys for Christmas.
You see, this is
owls for roast beef. What is the matter with you?
So you know where I actually think the media has got an awful lot to answer for. And I try and correct this every step of the way, that I see it anyway, is the number of times people use the word Palestine as if it is still a place. And actually, that's what I think fuels a lot of this argument. Because since Iran became the name of the state of Persia, you've never heard Persia used since, because it doesn't exist anymore.
Correct.
And it is exactly the same with what was Palestine. It is now known as Israel, and there is no such country anymore as Palestine. Exactly the same way, Yugoslavia doesn't exist anymore, right? All of these different countries that have changed their landscape, have changed their name, and people accept it, with the exception of one. And the media continue to fuel it by legitimizing the name Palestine. Fair enough if you're going to say that there is a toss-up between those who identify as Palestinian. There are still people who identify as Persian. You know, there's nothing wrong with calling yourself Persian. Yeah. But you don't come from Persia anymore. You come from Iran.
You come from Iran, yeah. The son of the Shah is, I see some of his comments, etc., etc. And if they got rid of the current regime, good luck with that, in Iran, I think the majority of people would be thrilled I mean, the citizens there, I'm not talking about the Western world, but I think the majority, and they'd reinstate the Shah as he was, it'd be the son, and they'd see how that goes, which has got to be a better deal than what they've got with these fundamental lunatics.
Listen,
But
I
anyway,
couldn't agree more.
what the hell?
This is actually partly why I find baffling, is because the source of most of the misery around this world, Charles, at the moment, certainly terrorist misery, is Iran. If they would actually turn around and start chanting free Persia rather than free Palestine, they would actually find that if they threw their weight behind that campaign, most of the problems would disappear.
But they won't. So they won't. This week, some maniacs went into a church in Africa and beheaded 70 people. 70 people. Beheaded. Christians. They beheaded 70 Christians. I don't see any
Philip Harling
protest in the streets.
Yeah. Philip Harling asks a very valid point, and there's nothing wrong with this question at all. You're quite right to ask it. Don't want to fall out with anyone. You're not going to fall out with me. I believe in debate, so I'm not falling out with anyone. But what I don't understand is, if there is no Palestine, why are people called Palestinians? Well, it's the kind of way there is no Persia, but people refer to themselves as Persians. It's just how they identify. It's exactly the same way that there are people, not so many now because it's been so long since it existed, but there are people who refer to themselves as Rhodesian, but it's Zimbabwe. You know, it's just really, it's sort of one feels their identity. And I personally think if someone wants to identify as Palestinian, knock yourself out. But if you're calling yourself Palestinian on the basis that you think you're going to erase Israel from existence, then you're going to be very disappointed, because it's not going anywhere, thankfully. And the truth is, the world would be far worse off if we did go anywhere, because Israel as a country, given its very, very small landmass, and people don't realize is actually the size of Wales. That is the entire size of Israel, landmass.
The size of Wales, isn't it? Did you say?
Yes, size of Wales.
Yeah, size of Wales, that's it.
A country the size of Wales has made the most phenomenal contribution to the world that we know, from the world of technology to the world of medicine, and actually in the world of security as well. A lot of the armed forces in the Western world have received various bits of knowledge and training from people from Israel, because they have their army so perfect, if you see what I mean. They are so screwed on in a military sense that half the security that we have in the Western world, not half, probably that's a bit of an exaggeration, a lot of the security that we take for granted in the Western world is because of what Israel's contributed towards it. But people don't talk about that because they don't care about that.
Let's look at the elephant in the room. All right. And I've kept my powder dry. I haven't discussed this at all this week on the Midday Show. Okay. I'm still in a rage. Last week I did a monologue and people said, oh, you were braver. Well, I don't think it was brave. I just said what was in my heart. Okay. I'll rephrase it so it's accurate. A lot of major cities this week, New York, Paris, Berlin, etc.,
Rio de Janeiro,
lit up a building in orange as a sign of their solidarity and of their horror of what happened to the Bibas family. Strangling babies. Obviously, for some people, no problem at all.
Unless they live in Gaza.
Yeah, of course, obviously. And what did we have here in London, once the greatest city in the world? What did we have here? Nothing. But we did have the mayor banging on and on and on and on about Ramadan. Fair enough. Enjoy Ramadan. Absolutely. Why not? No problem with that whatsoever.
Maybe don't Ramadan it down our throats, but other than that, enjoy it.
Ramadan ding dong. Anyway, so it's like, and so many people on social media go, why nothing in London? You know, and Americans, why nothing in London? I go, oh gosh, I have no idea. You work it out. We know why. God forbid it offended the people they're going to rely on to vote for them when they're eviscerated in 4 years' time. Because in 4 years, the only reason these clowns are going to give the vote to people under 16 who know fuck all, with great respect, right? Like, you're 16 years old. You don't have political nuance. You don't, right?
Yeah.
But the only reason they would think about giving the vote to the 16, because they would con them, like they conned all of us. We're going to do this. We won't do that. They lied. Come the next election.
The irony is, though,
What's
if they did
that?
give the vote to the under 16, if they gave the vote to the 16-year-olds, is that statistically speaking, as things stand in the UK, and I don't know what it would look like political map-wise in a few years' time when it's election time again, but as things stand, there are not enough 16-year-olds geographically in this country, 16 to 18-year-olds, who would, even if every single one of the 1-point-something million that there are voted Labour, it actually wouldn't make any difference. That's the irony.
Not when you're cheating at the elections, no.
But it wouldn't
Not
make a
when you're
difference.
doing postal votes that don't exist, no. They lie and they lie. It's unbelievable. And I would say the same thing if it was the Tories in power. They just lie. You can't believe
I did say the same
they
thing when
say.
the Tories were in power.
You
I
did,
absolutely
know.
said the same things. When the Tories were in power last time round, they were the biggest disappointment ever. They weren't conservative.
Absolutely. 100%.
They were anything but conservative.
Absolutely.
They were
100%.
absolutely
Whoever was
shocking.
advising them should go and, be a sweeper upper in Greg's, because they don't deserve to serve in the counter behind Greg's, because that will require some brains. I get so crazy with anger about this.
I try very hard not to, because
But
even though I'm not obviously
eaten me
submerged
up.
in that world. No, I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm submerged in that world so often because of the work I do. But
Yes, of course you do.
I just think to myself, there's very little I can change the here and now. So it's all well and good for me to get frustrated about what's going on in London. I don't live in London, so I can't vote in the mayoral election. I can't stand Sadiq Khan with an absolute passion. I mean, there's words in the English language to describe what I think of him. But I'm fairly sure people will to work it out for themselves what I really feel.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, say, the results of the general election, I understand why people wanted the Tories out. But unfortunately, far too many people in this country are politically stupid and they vote. And it's a mistake, a terrible, terrible mistake. The problem you've got is that by all people who are allowed to vote, yes, I know that's how democracy works. I understand that. But what we don't understand is how dangerous it is. The vote itself is actually quite a powerful tool, and people just don't realize it. They go along and they think of, now what works for me, not what works for the country. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Philip goes on to say,
Philip,
we have been given the right to vote, but for me, not anymore. Bunch of hypocrites, the lot of them.
But Philip, you must do whatever you want to do, and I would never be prescriptive about that. But if people have died to have the vote, not voting is, well, if you don't vote, then you've got, all right, I don't want to make it about you. It's not about you. But my view is this. If you can't be bothered to, I don't mean you, Philip, but if you can't be bothered to get off,
if one can't be bothered to vote.
one can't be bothered to get off their ass off the sofa and stop watching Celebrity Antique Road Ship for 5 minutes and go and vote, you then for 4 years have no right to say anything about anything because you didn't vote. That's my own personal view. I'm not talking about you, Philip. Be very clear. I'm talking about people in general. Say, I'm not going to vote. That's my protest. It's not a protest. Because believe me, first, there's so many fake votes. So many fake votes. You know it, right? Secondly, the agitprop people will vote. And the people who go, I can't stand this crap anymore, won't vote because they're tired and exhausted from it. Now, what are you saying, Francois? You agree with me or you agree with Philip? Like, you won't vote because you hate them all. I hate them all. They're all terrible people.
Asa says, it sounds like a 2020 election played and the 2019-21 election that occurred in Canada. I don't get me started about Canada. Honestly,
Jesus
God, what has happened to that
guy.
wonderful country?
But his dad must be so proud. in his grave in Cuba. Anyway, there we are. So it's scary. I do agree.
Poor Canada, seriously.
Canada, you were there the end of last year. It's a beautiful place. It's, if you put in maniacs to run somewhere, the whole country goes to shit. It's as simple as that. I mean, look what we've got. God almighty. The most tone deaf and intellectually stupid bunch I think that have ever run this country. And that's saying something, because we've had some buffoons of all sides of the house. All sides of the house. They're all terrible. And I don't know what the answer is.
I just think
well,
there
I do
should
know
be
what the
such.
answer is. No one wants to hear it.
They will never ever change this, because it means that they know it would be a risk to them being in power. This is the problem. We're stuck in a rut until there is some sort of major revolution across the country, which I don't want to sound like, Vive la Revolution or anything like that, but it is basically what needs to happen. Is until we see some sort of major revolution in the country, we will be stuck with this lot, because this is not about voting. This is about actually realizing we need to fundamentally change who can vote, how they can vote, and what they're voting for. It's literally everything about this country, democracy speaking or democratically speaking, unfortunately, is screwed, because you've got a bunch of people who use a vote. They don't understand what that vote actually does. You've got a bunch of people you're voting for who are corrupt and revolting.
Yep.
And then to top it all off, when they actually do get into power, there's no consequence, because the House of Lords.
You can lie.
The House of Lords has been decimated. You could say what you want about hereditary peers, but in my humble opinion, that was actually the single most damaging thing that Labour ever did to this country, was abolishing hereditary peers. Again, politics of envy. This is what this boils down to, because by ruining the hereditary peers, what they have done is they've shattered any association with the past. So actually, people from generation to generation were brought up specifically knowing their roles, realizing the importance of their position and the privilege of their position. Not saying some people didn't take advantage of it. Everyone takes advantage of a bit of privilege once in a while. But taking advantage of their position.
Nick.
When they were in situ in the House of Lords, they knew what was fundamentally best for the country to keep it on the straight and narrow. Well, that's all gone. Hereditary peers are all no more. So now what you have is a load of people giving a little nudge and a wink to all their buddies, and they're the ones who sit in the Lords. And they are the unelected ones now who are making the decisions for the country. So yes, you could turn around and you could say hereditary peers weren't elected, but it didn't matter. They were in training all of their life to know what they had to do for their country. And because of jealousy, they were removed. They were binned off. So now we're in a hell of a lot of a worse situation as far as I'm concerned, because you've got a bunch of people who are still unelected who do what's in their best interest, not the country.
It is a fascinating thing that, as you are one of the most conservative with a small c, mild-mannered and polite people, for you to even mention the word the country needs a full revolution shows you the dire straits, and I don't mean Mark Knopfler, that we are in. Because I agree with you. This cannot go on. You cannot have a sitting MP beat the crap out of someone in the street,
And
get
away from
arrested,
it. Get no prison sentence.
get
Just 2 years
charged.
suspended.
Hang on, but explain to me. You have to deal with the news all the time. That's your job. I don't, because it sends me off the deep end, right? So can you explain to me how he got an appeal within what seemed like 45 seconds, and now it's a suspended sentence?
Amazing, that,
So
isn't it? Most people have to go to prison.
How did he get an
before there's
appeal so fast? How is that
Because
possible?
it's not what you know.
It's who
It's
you
very
know. Fair
simple.
enough. But it's unbelievable. So what is that message? Okay, everybody, go out, beat the shit out of anybody, and you get a suspended sentence. Say hurty words.
No. You won't. You won't get a suspended sentence. It tells them that an MP will get a suspended sentence because it's okay for them to do it.
When I saw that,
You know,
I thought, this is what's that piece of garbage, that horrible man who did the throat cutting. We knew what he meant by that as well. Ricky somebody or other. He's not going to go to jail. You won't even probably get a slap on the wrists, I would imagine.
It's just so sad just to think of how amazing this country used to be.
When you keep pushing ordinary people who just want to, probably watch Michael McIntyre on a Saturday, have a few laughs, just mind their own business. When you keep pushing those people to the extreme, you better be prepared for the outcome. And, Sharon McGovern, who's someone who's an amazing, amazing person. Let's start the revolution, Phil. This country is run by self-serving, money-grabbing thieves. Yes, it is. I couldn't sum it up better. And Daisy Don Brown, who's watching and joining in from northeastern United States, New York State, not New York City, New York State. What would it take? You see, I'm going to say something that I never, ever thought I would say. Ever. I have been a royalist my entire life. I love the royal family. I thought our late Queen was magnificent. I had the honor. I've met quite a few members of the royal family over the years. And I've met what was Prince Charles 3-4 times, I don't know, something like that. So Asa, who's American and Canadian as well, would say, what would it take for the king to step in and change the direction of the country? He can't do it.
That's been removed from him.
It's gone. He's a
figurehead,
showbiz.
Sadly.
He's just a figurehead. He's showbiz.
So,
but for the first time ever, I feel so disappointed by Charles, a man I have admired. I've always admired Prince Charles, now King Charles. Always admired him. And those I have, for reasons I'm not going to go into. I just have, all right? I think he's an extraordinary fellow. Whoever is advising him now, at a time when we are in this country, I think we're in crisis. I'm sorry, I do.
Major crisis.
We're in a major...
Because there are so many elements of life that are falling apart.
And the king should be neutral. Her Majesty was neutral.
Her late Majesty.
Her late Majesty. But when I see, I can't even express it. I think you know where I'm going here. And I'm thinking, all right, well, you're showing us, you're going to have to pick a side. You're going to have to pick a side. It's as simple as that. That's where we're going. Sharon says this, remember everything was made in Britain, let's restart manufacturing. It's too late, Sharon. Of course we should.
Right, so I don't think it's too late on the front. Listen, I tell you what I don't think is too late, right? Is the aspirations of the direction of travel we want the country to go in, right? So I don't think it's too late to turn around and start saying, we should be doing more here. We should be making much more in Britain, proudly boasting made in Britain and all that malarkey, and try and claw back bit by bit. If you have a look at what's going on in America at the moment, you can see Donald Trump is trying to do the same kind of thing. Where I think Donald Trump is going slightly wrong is he's introducing tariffs now to put people off from buying foreign goods.
Yeah.
I understand why he's trying to put them off buying foreign goods, but you've got to have the manufacturing locally first before you can implement the tariffs to stay. Don't do that anymore, if you see what I mean. He's doing it too prematurely, basically.
Okay.
Because all that's going to happen is people are still going to be forced to buy abroad, but Americans end up sort of paying for it because people are just going to put up their prices. If there's going to be a 25% tariff on the European Union, on other parts of the world, they're just going to bump the price up to make up for it. That's all that's going to happen. Cool. So I get his understanding, I get his logic, but sadly, I think it's too soon. However, I'm not the millionaire he is. So, far be it from me to tell him how to do business. But in terms of this country, manufacturing, I couldn't agree more. But there are so many other elements of our lives that are so broken at the moment and so not working that until we get a grip on them, we are, for all intents and purposes, doomed. And I'm not trying to be a scaremonger here. It's kind of fact, because our armed forces are in pieces. They're as good as non-existent, right? I know there are people who work in the armed forces, absolutely. And it's very respectable they do. That the fact they want to give themselves for king and country, amazing. Very happy to hear it. I'll be honest with you, I'm not so sure I'd be brave enough to do it myself. However, until we get the armed forces in tip-top order, I actually believe bring back conscription. I really sort of do believe that.
That's not going to win votes, fella.
I don't care. Doesn't matter. It's what needs to happen to get this country back on track.
It's a vote loser. You know that.
Be that as it may, you still need to do something to get this country back on track. Bring back conscription. You would need to say that would then teach people to be disciplined enough in a certain fashion that they would be decent citizens. But then it would also
know how to shoot better.
It would also tell them how to protect their country a little better than they do. Why is everyone brought up to hate this country now? I know it's easy to hate. We don't need to be brought up to hate it.
You know why?
There's an awful lot that's wrong with it, an awful lot we can do about it. But until you get the armed forces sorted, until we get the healthcare system back on track, until we sort out politics, until we sort out education, there's literally every single strand of this country is failing. And no one is stepping back and saying, maybe we need to change tactics quite dramatically. No one's doing that. There's a possible exception of the Reform UK party, but realistically, what power do they have? And the answer is sadly none. But even if we shove Reform UK to one side for the moment, what I find most baffling above everything else is that this country, even as we speak, is being invaded. Literally, as we speak, is being invaded. This is not the ramblings of some crazy conspiracy theorist. This is factually accurate. As we speak, there are people who cross the channel and enter our country illegally. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they come from. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know where they're going. We don't know how they're going to behave once they actually get onto mainland. And do me a favor, anyone telling me, or at least they're put up in hotels, they're kept within the confines. No, they're not. They're absolutely not. They're put up in hotels. But I've actually even inadvertently met someone who is an illegal migrant who's staying in one of those hotels and chatted with that individual casually. They don't know my political views. Casually chatted with them. And the things they're reeling off that they're able to do, they just basically carry on as normal in this country. They're free to come and go as they please. They're not kept on any tabs or anything like that. They could literally abscond to those hotels and go anywhere. This country is being invaded by people who are potentially dangerous, who are God knows what when it comes to their criminal background. And we let them walk the streets. And worse, we pay for the privilege of them being here. This country is insane. Absolutely insane. Is this really what forefathers fought for during the Second World War, to keep this country safe, just to have it hand over to a bunch of individuals who've got goodness only knows what intention to damage this country the way we know it? And they already are, by the way.
Let me ask you this question then. Why? What, if you think this is true, if you think it is true, why is this being not just allowed, but encouraged? First by the Conservatives and now by this bunch.
So can I give you the answer? I've also thought about that. Can I say why I believe that is the case? Is because I think they know they can't deal with it. They can't do it in any other way.
They can deal with it.
They don't have the manpower. They don't have the armed forces to deal with it.
Hang on, stop.
So
stop.
if I don't think,
hang on, stop. Everybody goes on about, if you're coming in the back of a lorry, okay, chances are you may or you may not be searched. If you're coming in a dinghy, you can be seen. All right. Explain to me, if people are this worried about it, if any government was this worried about it, why could they not send out Royal Navy? Why not? Why can't they do that then?
Because apparently under international law, which is just an excuse, we can't send these people back, which is absolute rubbish. We could do. We might get into trouble. What are they going to do? Arrest the whole country? I doubt it. But they could very easily send them back, point a gun at their boats. I'm fairly sure they'd turn around quite quickly. I'm not being funny. If I saw someone pointing a gun at me, I'd turn around the other way and go back from where I came from. 100% I would. Of course I would. Who wouldn't? Who in their right mind wouldn't?
Look at this with Sharon. And Sharon lives somewhere pretty quiet. I can't go into my local town after 4 p.m. Large groups of men, always men, most can't speak English, and crime in my area has gone up 40%.
Tell you everything you need to know.
There was a thing that I saw on Twitter, and they had the security footage of it in a tiny little country village. little country village, you know, sort of the sort of thing countryphile like to be in, you know, really charming. And these two people, two men, they couldn't get knives. They were wandering around with acid. They did an acid attack. So you kind of think, well, if I'm living in London or Birmingham or some other, you know, current shithole, I get that. In the beautiful countryside, one person's been blinded, one person's badly, and they're searching for them. They can never seem to find them. It's amazing.
And
they can never seem to find
them. You can't find them.
Why
No,
is
you
that?
never will do. Because they go under the radar. This is exactly my point. So they're probably people who came over here illegally. They're probably people who were in an hotel at one stage and now have just wandered away from that hotel because they're not being monitored. At the very least, if you are going to allow a whole load of people into your country and you don't have the manpower to throw them back out again, might I suggest at the very least you shove a tag on them so you know where they are? At the very least. But no, none of that. So in my humble opinion, right. So I was saying you were asking why. Yeah, this is what I believe, because it's the only thing I can think of as possibly logical explanation to it. If we don't have the manpower to deal with this in the way that I believe we don't, right? And it's not even just the manpower, it's actually the powers, because we're so hell-bent apparently on sort of following the letter of the law. God forbid we should break the law in this country if we're law-abiding citizens. If you're not law-abiding, feel free to break the law as much as you want. Doesn't matter, apparently. But if we
Manchester Airport.
If we round up these cretinous individuals, yes, totally. If we round up these cretinous individuals and turf them out, realistically, what's going to happen? Nothing. Absolutely nothing, apart from we get the country back that we knew and love. That's the only thing that would happen.
You won't.
So, no, you would. If you round up every single cretin.
You won't. Hey, Phil. I'm going to say what no one else is really prepared to say. All right. How far would you have to go back to throw the people out that you're
anyone who's not here legally? Literally anyone. Don't care how far back you go. If they're living and they're here illegally, turf them out. Literally, as brutal as that.
How would you find them all? You know, and you see, the other thing is, you talk about infiltration, which is a word you're not allowed to say, or you're talking about fifth columnists. When you look, and I thought, well, man, I'm being paranoid. It can't be right. And then you look at you look at the makeup of the Home Office. And in my head, I have a kind of mental image of what the Home Office is. Not that at all. And you think, how many enablers, I think that's the word I'm searching for, how many enablers are now entrenched in the Home Office? How many enablers are in the judiciary? I mean, if we did a straw poll, and say, do you trust the judiciary anymore? You see some of these decisions, you think, I genuinely don't understand this. Hurty words, you're banged up for 2-3 years instantly. Violence, not a problem.
So here's another thing. Francois raises a very valid point there, which he says they're on the radar asking for benefits. The council would have all their names. So would the DWP, Department for Work and Pensions. So for me, I'd say it's very simple. If someone wants to go on benefits, they have to hand over their fingerprints as DNA, right? Literally fingerprints, DNA, and also that fully identifies them, right? So we know exactly who these people are. I don't care what anyone says. But just in terms of sort of very quickly, I'm determined to finish this point.
No, you can go on. You've got to go, but we can go on. But
no, I know. But you say about how realistically, sort of what can you do? Like, how would you, why are they being encouraged? I don't think it's a case they're being encouraged. I think it's a case of that the government know they can't win this because they just don't have the ability to source it. They don't have the manpower, and I do mean manpower, let's be honest about this. They don't have the manpower in order to round everyone up that needs to be round up and turf them out. Because you've got a police force that is overcome by wokeness. You've got an army that's on its knees because there's no funding into it. So we just don't have the ability to turf people out. So the only way that I believe they think they can win people over is by welcoming them with open arms in the hope that they will be a good British citizen. And I really believe that's it. That's the only logical explanation I can possibly think of as to why this nonsense goes on.
Sadly, Michelle, that your buddy, the wonderful Chantal Rickards OBE, is in Poland, in the Polish countryside with her relatives, and she's got no internet, not nothing. She's got nothing there, nothing.
On that note, I fear I must away, but let me be very clear. I'm not downhearted. I've not given up on the UK yet. I wholeheartedly believe that before long, well, it's not even before long, I genuinely believe people are waking up to this now. I think they're at a stage now where they think, this is too much, can't do this anymore, we've got to do something. They don't quite know what yet, but I believe something is going to go down. I don't know what it is yet. But I live in hope that before long, in all our lifetimes, we will actually start to see some sense come back to this country. And I wholeheartedly believe we will. On that note, have a great week.
Bye-bye. Phil, as ever. What a bloke. Yeah, I guess it's outspoken. But is it? If you can't say what you really feel, what's the point? Because one of the things quite clearly that is going on is to create a climate where you're afraid to express an opinion. It's not just censorship. When J.D. Vance yesterday turned to Keir Starmer and said, I don't think you have free speech in the UK, is that right? And Keir Starmer then did his usual snake oil salesman act and said, oh, no, it's free speech. We're very proud of our free speech. Really? Really? So it's a concerted effort to make people afraid to speak their minds, unless you toe a party line. I don't mean a political party, you know, the party. Normally Fridays is light and show busy. Not today, because sometimes life is just too darn serious. Have a wonderful weekend. Look after yourselves. I'll be back with Neil Longy Long on Monday. No hurty words. And try and stay out of trouble. Until then, thank you so much for your company. Thanks for letting us join you. Bye-bye.